for joining us. What do you make of this? What can you tell us about what is going on in the FCT?
Sean, what is going on in Abuja is a reflection of what has been happening across Nigeria. If you look at the data, you would see that over 9,700 people were killed last year, that is in 2023, across Nigeria. And last December, over 880 Nigerians were killed and over 600 were abducted across the country. And Abuja cannot be immune to that, because as long as you leave insecurity to fester and flourish across Nigeria, then it will find its way to Abuja. Sean, you and I have held several conversations here last year in which we highlighted and warned that violent terrorist groups and criminal gangs have been moving from northwestern Nigeria and northeastern Nigeria to states across Abuja. And so Abuja currently borders 4 states that are harboring criminal and terrorist cells in their forests: Kaduna, Nasarawa, Niger, and Kogi. All of these 4 states harbor terrorist cells in the forests that are neighboring Abuja. And now these criminal gangs and terrorist organizations have been able to find a way of coming to communities close to Abuja and abducting and killing and maiming individuals. From October 2013 to December 2013, the last 3 months of last year, over 200 people were either killed or abducted in Abuja, in the Federal Capital Territory. And it is not just abductions and kidnappings, it is also increasing armed robbery across Abuja. In major junctions across Abuja, criminals and armed robbers masquerading as taxi drivers and as other businessmen in the city, kill, maim, and rob unsuspecting Nigerians in a way that we have not seen before. Abuja is becoming one of the scariest cities in the world. Is becoming one of the scariest federal capitals in the world. And I think the federal government needs to pay more attention to this crisis so that it doesn't drive away foreign investors, diplomats, and other visitors to Nigeria and affect Nigeria's international standing.
Now, it's so sad that, Nabiha was said to have been killed in the kidnappers' den. And I'm very sure that you are conversant with this conversation online with a former Minister of Communication, Ali Pantami, who went on Twitter, who was even talking about one of his friends who is donating money. A part of his the tweet or the message that he put out on social media, part of it reads, let me just read part of it. He said, "Furthermore, I spoke with a friend and a brother who offered to pay the remaining 50 million naira of the 16 million. Immediately, I conveyed the account number of the father of our daughters, Mansour Al-Kadia, to the friend and brother to send the money directly. Any additional amount earlier generated from yesterday, the father can use to treat the daughters and other family members, inshallah." He says, "It's become clear we lost our daughter Nabiha yesterday, and the 5 remaining daughters have been threatened. I spoke with the father on one matter yesterday." Sad scenario of what is happening in in Nigeria, and when we wonder, a city that is supposed to be highly fortified, and it brings back the sad scenario of the attack on police headquarters, the United Nations headquarters, and the reason why this kind of conversation is very important, not only because some of these institutions are important, but the lives of people, especially those who live in Maitama, for example, in the city center, you have all these criminalities going on. But the question is that, why has it risen? You've identified that there are cells within and around the FCT, but why the audacity to come into the FCT, a place that's supposed to be highly fortified?
Yeah, Sean, this incident that you cited is a sad incident of 6 sisters who were abducted around 7th January along with their father. And when they reached the criminal or terrorist den, they ended up releasing the father, asking him to go and source ransom in the sum of 60 million naira, which is 10 million naira per individual. And they later then gave the father the deadline of the 12th of January that if he does not bring 60 million naira, they would kill the sisters. And at the end of the day, when the ultimatum expired, they killed one of the sisters and threatened to kill the remaining if they don't raise the money quickly. And of course, the former Minister Isa Ali Fankami's intervention is commendable in the case of this family. Unfortunately, I was reading in one of the major national newspapers earlier, I don't remember specifically which, that reported that the kidnappers have now raised the ransom for the sisters. They are now demanding 100 million naira per individual instead of the 10 million naira they had previously. This is just one example of what is going on in Abuja. A close family, a family friend of ours lost her life just like 10 days ago. Shown Habiba Ocheni was her name. She took an Uber driver inside Abuja. She disappeared without reaching her destination. And 3 days later, she was found in the mortuary dead. And she's another example. So there are many examples. And like you said, it is the criminal gangs that are surrounding Abuja, but there are other causes. The economic situation in the country is making more and more Nigerians desperately poor. More young people are unemployed. And when young people are unemployed, then they become candidates for criminality, candidates for being recruited into terrorist and criminal gangs. Secondly, showing criminality pays in Nigeria, unfortunately. We don't see individuals who have committed acts of terrorism or criminality, violent criminality, being arrested, investigated, and prosecuted, especially their leaders. And in this case that we are talking about, shown 60 million naira, if 60 million naira was paid to this gang, let's assume they invested 5 million naira, which is unlikely to conduct this operation. It means they had made a profit of 55 million naira in 1 week, between 7th January and 15th January. Showing which business in Nigeria makes 55 million in a week. So criminality pays, there are no consequences to crime, and it is clear that the government efforts, ongoing government efforts, security efforts, leave much to be desired.
But what do you think leadership, because the IGP, we understand, has raised a team, but there is a leadership, there is a minister for the FCT, there is a senator in charge of the FCT, the president lives in the FCT, and things are deteriorating. What do you imagine could be done right now?
Yeah, I mean, Sean, of course, things are deteriorating. What you would need to see right now is a decisive action, sustained decisive action by security and law enforcement agencies, not only to secure Abuja, but to secure the whole country. Like I said, it is a fallacy for you to think you can secure Abuja when the whole of the country is on fire. So the way to secure Abuja is to take the fight to the terrorists and criminal gangs inside the bush, inside the forest, not just in the north central and the northwestern parts of Nigeria where which border Abuja, but also to other parts of Nigeria. Because the more criminal gangs fester and flourish, the more money they get, the more experience they get, the more audacious they become, and the more they launch deadly attacks. Now that we are seeing these reports in Abuja, the Minister of Steel Development, Sheon, just talked to you about foreign investment. These kinds of incidents, insecurity and criminality across the Federal Capital Territory is going to discourage foreign investors from investing in Nigeria. It is going to discourage diplomats from living in Abuja, and that will affect Nigeria's international standing. It is going to affect our economy in a big way, but also because of this insecurity, unemployment, illiteracy, and other evils will continue to fester in the country. And so the government has to see insecurity, tackling insecurity as a priority.
But Mr. Bukati, I'm worried though. In the early months of President Tinubu in office, there seems to be some kind of dowsing in the activities, in these criminalities. And what could have, from towards the end of November and December, from what we saw from Beacon Consulting report of the year ending, it showed that there was a rise in the rate of criminality and violent activities in Nigeria. And the kind of stories and reports that we've gotten in the early days of this year, they're not looking good. So what suddenly happened?
Yeah, I mean, insecurity has always ebbed and flowed in the country. So it is never one trajectory. It always goes up and down. And you are right that earlier in 2023, we saw a downward trajectory in insecurity. It could be part of the efforts taken by the new administration, but it could also be coincidence or a combination of both. And then what we saw in the last quarter of last year was an exponential rise in insecurity across the country, including in Abuja. And of course, like I said, there are seasons we know where insecurity goes up and there are seasons when they go down. There are factors, of course, that allow them to go up at some periods. There are times where we see them going down. And of course, what we are now seeing is an upward trajectory, but that's because the root causes are not being addressed. The fight to the criminal and terrorist gangs is not enough. Much is left to be desired, and I think the only way to secure Nigeria is to take the fight to them instead of waiting for them to strike, and then you are always in the defensive.
Well, we thought that we had it covered. We have the air prowess and the ground capacity to be able to root these people out. Is this a unified tendency that we're seeing, this banditry, or they are just cells and different elements that are operating for criminality? Do they have an ideology, just like we saw in the Northeast region? Who are these bandits? Do they have names, or they just have a scattered? They are not. Are they organized in any way?
So, Sean, unfortunately, insecurity has become a hydra-headed monster that is consuming thousands of lives every year in Nigeria and destroying hundreds of thousands of livelihoods per year. And like you said, there are different groups operating in different countries, in different parts of Nigeria, but there are parts where you have more than one group. As for the Boko Haram crisis, thankfully, we have seen a decrease in the number of fatalities in the Northeast, especially in the last few months. But unfortunately, things are now also getting worse there. In the Northwest and the North Central, most of the criminal actors are bandit terrorists. And these bandit terrorists are estimated to be around 30,000 people divided into about 100 groups. So you would say it's like 100 small groups with around 300 members each of them. And they operated in the Northwest and now in the Northeast. And of course, in the North Central. And of course, in the North Central, evidence shows that there are Boko Haram factions, especially Ansaru and ISWAP, also operating there. Those are ISIS and Al-Qaeda affiliates that enjoy the support of ISIS and Al-Qaeda, and some of them get from ISIS to continue their operations in the North Central in particular. But as for the bandits, they do not have a serious ideology. But what we know is that they are mainly driven by economic motives, ransom payments. But unfortunately, we have seen a change in their mode of operation. They are now killing more people than they are abducting. For example, last December, they abducted 600 people, over 600 people, but killed over 800. So they are killing more people than they are abducting. And there could be other factors driving now.
So sad, and thank you so much for the perspective. Another sad scenario is the fact that kidnapping has returned to the Abuja-Kaduna Expressway. And this, we thought that, that ended at some point, but it's sad that that has returned. The IG said he's returning a very highly equipped team on that expressway. But then we hope that the authorities will do something and do it fast, because what happens is that where your biggest or your strongest link is being vulnerable, it tells a story of the vulnerability of the entire piece. So that's the story of the security situation in Nigeria. But thank you so much. Bulama Bukati is a research fellow with the Tony Blair Foundation Institute in London. Thank you so much indeed for your time tonight.
Thank you, John. Of course, I did not represent the Tony Blair Institute on this interview. I did it as a Nigerian and as an expert who follows these activities on a daily basis.